What's up, guys? Welcome to this is week one of my Pro Tools course that involves mixing and going through Pro Tools and all that good stuff. We're going to be doing all that, and I feel like this is going to be fun because it's a little more laid back. It's for you members only, and I'm not having to be so uppity like my other videos. So it's going to be pretty laid back, pretty chill. And the first thing we're going to go over this first week is just where to get Pro Tools, what I feel like you need and maybe don't need. I'm going to give you my opinion on some things. Just jumping into Pro Tools and getting started with like what settings, what settings I have in my Pro Tools and things like that. So also with like the active, with the Ilok key and that stuff. I almost said Activision like we playing Call of Duty. But the Ilok key and all that good stuff. So let's look at first. Let's just go to Avid, which I'll start a fresh page right here. But we'll go to Avid. I'm gonna first show you where Pro Tools is. Avid.com. Avid is the company that makes Pro Tools. And we're just going to go here to audio and music. Go to Pro Tools. If it'll... Oh, never mind. We were already on it. All right, so there's several different options when choosing Pro Tools, right? You've got annual subscriptions and you've got monthly subscriptions. The monthlies are going to be not, these three prices right here are self-explanatory. You've got Pro Tools Artists. Here's the thing when you're trying to pick which Pro Tools you need. You kind of need to know some of it's going to depend on budget, obviously, but some of it's going to depend on what you do, because this is saying that Pro Tools Artists, you can only have 32 audio tracks, so like, let's say you put some beat stems in Pro Tools, that right there might take up 15, 20 tracks. And then you're left with, 15 or 12 other tracks for vocals. That might not be enough for you. You might be the type of person where, you do bigger sessions or whatever. So you would need one of these two versions. If you want to know what I have the Pro Tools Studio. I have this version right here. And I actually bought it a long time ago when it was a flat price. It was just like $600, which I think there's a annual. There is a $600 a year, but the one I have now is $300 a year. This is the best bet. That's why it says it's recommended, because with this right here, you're not gonna really need anything else. I mean, this over here is for people that are doing just super gigantic stuff, you like movies and stuff like that. So this is recommended, but if you cannot do this, this one would be good for like an independent artist working out of their house, recording themselves and stuff like that. So you could always DM me or whatever, and I can help you choose if you need me to do that. But there's your monthly and annual subscriptions. I would do annual. If your budget won't allow you to do annual, then do monthly. But once you do that, obviously you'll make an account. I'm going to go ahead and click on my account. Once you pay for it, it should come to where you go to your account and you go to view my products. You'll go to view my products. Also, there's another thing that you're going to need, and it is a Ilok key. Here's a picture of it right here, just so you guys can see. And it's about $50 or so. But when you buy Pro Tools, you'll make an account. When you buy Pro Tools, it'll go here to your, you go to account and then you go to my products, and you can see that mine is right here. And you can see my, just all of it right here. It tells you what I've got. and billing info and this type of stuff. And it tells you when it renews. When it renews every year, that's not only just renewing your subscription, that's with the support plan, which is like you're basically yearly paying for like the updates and all that stuff as well. Yeah, and then down here you have a link that it'll give you. This is where you'll download. So you've got the Pro Tools download. You've got to download the driver. All the things, the plugins and everything's down here. I would go through and download each one. It's going to take a minute. There's a lot, but you'll go through and download all that. Once you do that, you'll give them your email. That's your iLok. You need to set up iLok. And iLok is going to kind of look like this. I went ahead and pulled mine up, but this is my iLok right here. This is just showing you what I have on my actual iLok key, which is plugged into the back of my computer. And I have Pro Tools put on here somewhere. But basically they put it on your iLok, and then here it is right here. And yeah, you activate it. You'll right click and then activate, and once it's activated, you should be good to go. But once you buy it, they'll ask for your iLok and all that stuff, and you'll put in whatever email you have associated with your iLok, and then put it in there, and then it'll send to this, and then you'll activate. And once you do that, your first time. So let me close Pro Tools and reopen it for y'all. But yeah, once you do that, you'll click Pro Tools here it probably won't be here at the bottom in your dock. You'll probably have to pull this up where all your apps are, and slide through and find it, and then you can add it to the dock by dragging it or right clicking it or whatever. But you'll open Pro Tools, and if you're just opening it for the first time, there's probably going to be a lot of like plugins loading and stuff like that. And when you get to this screen, you should just new session, and we can just name it whatever. We've got some settings down here that you're going to want to put in, like you can keep it last used, and you can put this at 48 wave and then 24. And then this is just deciding where you're wanting this session to go to. I do my desktop, but if you want it in your downloads or whatever, that's cool. It's up to you. I would not recommend putting it to a jump drive or a hard drive, because I have had problems with, you send it to a drive, it creates it on that drive, and then next thing you know, during a session or whatever, your drive like disconnects itself, and then boom, the session crashes and you might have lost something. So I would put it on your desktop, and when you're done with the session, drop it wherever you're wanting to put it. And then we'll click this button that says interleaved. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I kind of know what it means, but I really don't fully understand, but I always have it checked. So we'll do that. Once you do that, you might think, oh, I didn't do anything because the screen, there's nothing here, right? But we will just go up here to Window, and then we can pull up Edit, and it's gonna be right here. We're not gonna quite get into actual Pro Tools today, but we will get into these settings. Over here at the top left, you've got Pro Tools, and all this up here is for Pro Tools, the audio suite options, setup, all this stuff, right? We could start with we'll start with Pro Tools settings. Um, we'll open this up, and let me do this so we can focus on it a little better. There we go. Well, we've got Pro Tools settings, right? And I'm going to flip through these so you can kind of see what I have on mine. But you've got this here, not 100% what everything is in the settings. I don't know who would be, but you've got the theme right here, which is classic and dark. It makes the Pro Tools like look darker, and the classic is the lighter. This is how you want your plugins organized. This is just how I have mine. I like seeing by what company made which plugins rather than category, which would be like reverbs, and then have all your reverb plugins and so on. This is how I keep mine. Track type. I like when you make a track, whatever color you make that track, that is what your audio waves also are that color, if that makes sense. So if I decide for my hook track to be red when I record and I put something on the hook track, that clip that you recorded or whatever is also going to be red. You can switch that up if you want, whatever. I'm trying to look for the other most important things. Another really important one, this is super important actually, but this auto backup. This is for when Pro Tools does crash, which it will crash. I'm telling you right now, Pro Tools is not perfect and it will crash. I probably get a crash a day. Everybody's is different, but yeah, enable file auto backup. I just have it set to the 10 most recent, and I have it back up every minute, which is weird because it does not back up every minute, but it does back up pretty often, every couple minutes or whatever. But it's a big saver for when a session crashes. You can pull it back up, and you can pull a backed up one, if you lost stuff or whatever. This is how I've got these settings over here. We'll go through the editing part. Clip list selection follows edit selection. This is what I've got everything set to, which I don't think I've ever messed with any of this, but for my workflow, I have not had any issues. So that's why I would say copy it. I don't think I've changed any of this. Won't spend too long on this. Oh, I know I changed this. Actually, I did change this. Meter type to linear. I like a linear meter better. We'll get into the differences later, but processing, I don't think I've ever changed anything in this. I know I haven't changed anything in this or this. And then this just looks like that. So that's kind of how my Pro Tools preferences or settings look. The only other settings that we could look at is here in options. I always have this delay compensation on. This is so that when you have a plugin that kind of causes latency in the session, this will kind of make up for it. It'll get rid of that lag. You'll end up having a lag, and this delay compensation really helps with that. Make sure your edit window scrolling is no scrolling, because if you have it on anything else, it's going to be super annoying. Quick punch is pretty important. Make sure that's set to quick punch is set. Playback engine. this is important too. Your playback engine is going to be whatever is pretty much your interface, So I've got an Apollo Universal Audio Thunderbolt, so that's what we're running through. So that's what it's set to. You might have a Scarlett or some other interface that should pop up here if you have it plugged in correctly and the driver set up and all that. This buffer size, let me explain this buffer size. So the buffer size is going to depend on a few things, but your computer, the power of your computer is really going to determine where your buffer size should be. I have a really good computer, high speed, expensive computer, so I can run it at 32. Basically, when it's at 32, it uses more power, and when it's at, or less power, and when it's at 1024, it uses more. So like when I'm recording, I keep it on 32 or 64. Also, it causes lag when recording. So that's another reason. When you're recording vocals, you want to keep this low. As low as you can. You might actually set it to 32 and then start recording in a session and your computer like stops you and says, increase buffer size or something. That's because your computer can't handle being on 32 and you might have to go up some. So, and then when I'm mixing, when I'm like really mixing, not recording nothing, I got lots of plugins, lots of stuff going on in a session, I will move this up to 1024. And that will enable my computer to be able to process all of that. So that's kind of how that should be. You do not want this up here if you are recording vocals, especially if you're recording vocals with like the effects to where you can hear the auto tune and all that. And we'll get into the recording part later, but yeah. So that's that. Let's see what else we've got. We've got the IO here, and this is really important. I'm not sure what it's going to look like for you guys right when you're starting Pro Tools for the first time, so I can't think exactly how yours might be, but you can definitely DM me or whatever, and we can figure out what you need to do. But here are my inputs, where are just my mic inputs, and some of this is going to depend on, mine's not on 1 and 2. You can see it's on 3 and 4, and that's just because that's how my interface is. It goes with my interface. I have one output, which is just out to my speakers, and then I've got all kinds of buses and whatnot, which I can explain in a later video. Here is for Dolby Atmos, which that's a whole nother thing. And then these are inserts, which you'll use these for like outboard gear. So I have like 2 pieces of outboard gear that I use as inserts. And yeah. So the IO kind of is like the blueprint plan of how your session looks and runs. You don't see people messing with it a lot, just because once you have your stuff set how you want, there's no real reason to, at least for me, I'm speaking from my point of view, but there's no reason to actually mess with it once I have it all set. Unless like I was switching from something like a regular session to a Dolby Atmos session, everything's completely different or whatever. So, but yeah, that's pretty much week 1. I just wanted to kind of run you guys through what what I feel like you needed with Pro Tools or whatever. You got to make sure to get you an iLock key and to set up your iLock and get that all connected so that when you open Pro Tools, everything runs smooth and whatnot. If you have any questions or if you need help with any of that, please reach out, because I would love to get on a phone call and try to help you figure it out. I wish I could have actually like bought it and showed y'all exactly step by step. But obviously, I'm not going to go and buy Pro Tools again because I don't need another license of it right now. So appreciate y'all, and then next week we'll do another video. So peace out. Catch you at the next one.